is one of 5 that I have made from the same Japanese maple tree. The tree was about 14 inches in diameter. It had gotten really old and had to be cut down. I don't think I've seen very many Japanese maple trees this big. This is the 3rd and smallest coring from the 8-inch bowl that I made. I was having a really hard time trying to center this on the lathe as it had warped quite a bit since it had dried. I'm using my finger here to feel for any difference as the bowl turns so I can see if it's centered between the centers. I need to start off making a new tenon, as this little nub that's on the end is only the piece from the coring where it broke off from the middle of the bowl. I use my 55-degree swept-back bowl gouge for most of my bowl turning. It works really well in tight spaces as well as pretty robust to hog out a lot of material. Here I'm starting to shape the back of the bowl before I put it on the chuck and start hogging out the middle. I put the chuck on and then put the bowl on and realized that I hadn't put a shoulder on and it wasn't going to sit properly. So I had to take everything back off and then create this shoulder on the bowl so it would seat up against the chuck properly. I like using this skew to shape the tenon so I have that dovetail shape that will fit in the chuck. I'm working on shaping the back just a little bit more before I move on to the inside. This is where I realized that the tenon was actually coming off the back of the bowl. This wood is very punky. It is spalted, so it is semi-rotten pretty much. So I had to go get some CA glue to put on this tenon. It's so tiny and the wood is so soft. So this should, I was hoping, strengthen it up enough that if I was careful, it wouldn't be coming off the lathe. Sorry for the blurriness. When I started recording, it was perfectly in focus and I do not know what happened. It is fixed later on. At this point, I'm trying to be very careful and remove the material from the middle of the bowl. I really don't want to break the tenon off, so I'm trying to be as gentle as I can. I think the 55-degree swept-back bowl gouge is my favorite of all the gouges. It really does do almost anything. I can do spindle work with it, I can do bowls with it. It pretty much is an overall tool for anything I need to do. It was getting too deep in the bowl for me to keep using it because of the angle, so I got my bottom bowl gouge out. This lathe is not the best, having problems with keeping the tool rest where it needs to be. It keeps moving on me. At this point, I am watching the back of the bowl and not the bowl gouge to follow the path of the shape of the back of the bowl as I'm running the gouge along the inside to shape it so it matches the outside of the bowl. This is where it starts getting a little scary sometimes with small bowls like this, is I want to make sure that I don't blow out the bottom. Because this wood is so soft, it's tearing out really easily, even with my shallow cuts. So I'm using CA glue to strengthen up the wood and also fill in some of that. So when I sand it and when I use the bowl gouge, it's not tearing up as much. You can also use shellac like I have here for the same reason. It helps hold the fibers together, so as you cut and sand, you can get rid of some of that tear out. Now I'm putting on the jam chuck. What this is a piece of wood with a tenon on it where I can put a piece of material like foam and put the bowl right up against it so it doesn't go anywhere. It holds it very well on the lathe while I turn the tenon off. I was having a really hard time finding the little point where the live center went in because I had glued up the tenon and there was CA glue everywhere. So I had to go grab something so I can remake that little hole so I can line it up back on the lathe. And I realized it still wasn't turning straight because of the way this foam is shaped, so I took it apart so it had a flat back to it, and then everything was turning evenly again. While one doesn't usually use a spindle gouge on a bowl, it is okay if you're just working on the tenon as it is shaped as a spindle in that moment right there. But any other time you do not want to use a spindle gouge while making the bowl. The spalting on this bowl is so beautiful. To get the spalting, it was an experiment. I didn't know if it would work. I took the log and I kept it in a black bag up against the house. It was actually right next to the drain for the rain gutters. And it stayed there for about a year. And when I took it out, it was moldy and spalted and there was a black widow, but it ended up beautiful.